2022 Stanley Cup champions.
Well, happy Monday, everybody. Welcome on into the Cluster Puck Podcast, part of the MHRT Network here at Center Ice. I am Nick. Beside me here, she's always first in line on National Slurpee Day. It's Brit. How are you, Brit?
Second in line after Mr. Cale Makar.
That's right, I suppose.
I'm good. I'm ready for the game tonight. I'm excited. I feel like we get all these back-to-backs. Then when we have a one-day break, I'm wondering where hockey went. So
I know after you get deprived for a second time for almost a week, then you're like back-to-backs almost come standard.
Yep.
And it's about time too.
No end in sight and back-to-backs. So
I know. I was actually looking at the schedule, and believe it or not, we do have another back-to-back this weekend.
Oh, I believe
and it's
it.
like, so we escaped it, and then we didn't. So, you know.
Well, it's nice to come here and say that we took the back-to-backs and shoved them right back in their face. So it's hasn't been an issue for us at all.
Absolutely. Well, first things first, everybody, don't forget to like and subscribe to the show. Follow the MHRT Network so you can get notified when shows such as the Cluster Puck go live. We also have the Neighborhood is going to be on live during the game. The game is going to be just after we finish filming today. So don't forget to go over to Altitude Network and watch the Avalanche take on the Golden Knights. If you like us specifically, and you have and pick favorites, you can follow us at Cluster Puck Podcast. Excuse me, the Cluster Puck Podcast on Facebook. I'm tripping, man. It's a Monday. On Facebook, and then Cluster Puck Avs on Twitter and Instagram. So don't forget to stay caught up when you have final scores, news, notifications, anything like that. Okay, so we got a little bit to get into. The big swirling news is we're in trade week.
And we just made, the headline.
We made the blockbuster trade or trades of the year, man. I tell you. So the Avalanche did make a couple of trades. The first one being with Boston. The Avalanche received Keith Kincaid in exchange for Shane Bowers. Your thoughts on this one overall?
I feel like I could develop proper thoughts if I knew the intention or like what exactly the reasoning was. I'm curious to know because I've gone down several rabbit holes in my own head, whether like, okay, so are we going to trade Frankie for something, or is Frankie like
your brain always goes worst case scenario, right?
Yep. And so I think what it just comes down to is just having a third goalie, which it's not like we haven't had to use our third and fourth and spring goalie before in the playoffs. So considering that Frankie is made out of delicate hand-blown glass, I would say it's probably a good move because there's a good chance that he will end up hurt at some time. And this is also a good move for the Eagles, I think, if he's down there. It sounds like JoJo hasn't been having the best year so far. So JoJo's proven himself. He's a lifelong AHL goalie. He's not quite there for the NHL. So it looks like Kincaid is a little more promising in that. So Bowers is just, there's something about him that they didn't like. And he got his 3-minute chance, and the guy's got
he blew it.
The only person in the world with worse luck than myself. So the cursed hockey career of Mr. Bowers. I hope that he does. I'd like to see him have some success there. He's a hard worker, but it wasn't going to happen here. I don't know why he didn't get another chance, but he may as well go be successful somewhere else, because at this point it's hard to even consider him a prospect when we've had him for several years. So
exactly. Yep. And that's just it. It's like he was the one guy in his draft class, from his round, I should say, in his draft class that didn't have a chance to play up until he had his chance. 3 minutes didn't last. And that's the thing. It's like he was right up to the very end, even at the beginning of the season, until they decided to go with Martin Kaut.
Yeah,
Um,
the final
and
touch.
it's one of those things where you knew he has what it takes. It's just unlocking that ability, right? It's not even a potential question. It's an ability to unlock type of situation. And with our goaltending, and that's just kind of my thought is even with Frankie and Bednar even addressed it, saying no, he's fine. He's going to recover on his timetable, and we'll be fine. But I'm wondering if it's those instances where you are without your goalie, you're one of the two starting goalies. I wonder if Bednar's just trying to shore up the goalie position, at least in the AHL, when they do have those call-ups, if that ever does occur,
Right.
then they'll at least have some kind of a safe harbor in Keith Kincaid. So we welcome him to the Avalanche. I think he'll be a great addition. He has proven that he
I don't
has
know if
done
you
a pretty
saw
good job.
he's the emoji goalie. He apparently uses a lot of emojis on Twitter, which
Oh, is that right?
was things that you could be known for, I guess. So it sounds like he's a
I
big, huge
suppose.
locker room guy. And I'd imagine that Conan is probably like, get me a damn goalie because I know you guys are gonna have one of mine killed or maimed by the end of the year. And so
Essentially.
I don't even know necessarily that he would. I think that this is also keeping Onan's career in line so that we're not constantly plucking him and making him travel with no play. So I just don't know how it works. I think he's one that has to like go through waivers and stuff. So I don't even know if we'll pull him up, or I just don't know how
I'm not sure.
I don't know how it works for sure there. So but yeah, I'm sure the Eagles are like, we need some reassurance that we're not going to have to put Sample Rant on net by the year.
Exactly. And then, like I said, it hurts what it costs, but you can understand kind of, at least from the Avalanche standpoint, why they needed to give Shane Bowers kind of a change of scenery. You know what I mean?
Right. And at this point, he had no value to us if we're just going to
let him we weren't doing him any favors, and as much as I really did want him to play and have that chance and break out and all that stuff, it's just it seemed like the light was so far at the end of the tunnel that you might as well give it to someone else that would give him a better shot.
And having a shallow prospect pool when you sell the farm, but you win the Stanley Cup. So we are paying for it now, and now we're going to push a little bit harder. So we haven't made any super painful trades yet, but we're getting to the point where at some point we might have to wait for the dudes. So our other trade, as everyone knows, we brought Mr. Banana Pancakes back. Fan favorite, locker room favorite. A lot of people have a whole lot of feelings on this, but the general consensus from the locker room seemed to be very pleased to have Jack Johnson back. And honestly, the Blackhawk guys, they seem to be really, really sad to lose him. I don't know if you saw the picture of him with Domi. And I mean, I've never heard a person that met him say a bad thing about him. And when you consider his story and his career trajectory and how, I mean, it's a pretty sweet story. So I'm not mad about that trade. I think that it kind of makes me wonder if we have another piece coming. So if we acquire another person and we have another defenseman coming, we would end up sending England down, which would mean he would have to go through waivers and most likely he wouldn't clear.
He would probably have gotten picked up.
Now, it means that we can get Jack Johnson in the same way of losing England as we probably would have before, but we don't have to trade a pick or some, we don't have to get messy with what are we willing to give up for, our defenseman. So I think it's great to have him back. Even if he's just a locker room guy, he's a number 7 defenseman. It's a good locker room guys do matter. They really do.
Yep. And that's just it. At first, and I remember, we texted as soon as it happened, and we were both like, it felt like a downgrade almost, just right off, at first glance. We were like, well, England's younger and they both do the same stuff. Like, why would we do this? Was it like chemistry? Kind of like what you just,
especially
what
when
you just
England
talked about.
Seemed to grow so quickly under
Exactly. Yep. And I was thinking about it, and I saw I watched Mark Mosier on the Denver radio thing. He lit up those who were like, those who thought this was a bad trade. He lit them up. He was like, "Are you kidding me?"
Yeah, do not.
Yes, and as soon as he said that, I was like, he's got a fantastic point. Like, because that's the thing. I was like, he is the veteran presence. He was with the team when they won the cup. He played in those games.
And
it's just he was a more polished version, a more polished version of Andreas Englund, who, given his how many games he's played in the NHL, technically speaking, he'd be a career AHLer, you know.
Right.
So being 27 years old and not having that many games under your belt, it kind of is like, well, you're giving up someone who, in retrospect, with a healthy team, wouldn't even be on the Avalanche.
Right. And honestly, in an ideal world, we won't even have to see Jack Johnson on the ice, but we know that that's not how things go. So
And yeah,
we're not bringing him in to be a number 2 defenseman. We're not relying on him to run the power play or the penalty kill. I mean, it's really a pretty menial move.
yeah.
I just hope that it means that we have someone else coming. We have maybe some other big trade planned, and that's why we needed to get someone that would go through waivers or not have to go through waivers. So we'll see.
Yep.
Otherwise, basically everybody's just leaving the West and going to the East, and
no, it's so dumb.
Still over in the West.
Yeah, I just was on Twitter right before we hopped in to record, and I saw a picture of the Captain America Steve Rogers before his serum and after his serum, and the one before it says the NHL in the West, and the one afterwards, like all bulked up and beefy, it says the NHL in the East. And I was like, that is actually a very easy way to put that. Yeah.
If there was a year for us to struggle through the regular season and then get healthy before the playoffs, it's this year, because it's going to be just an absolute bloodbath in the East. And the West is worthless. I mean, other than possibly the Knights, the West is so, I bet the East absolutely despise the West. And I think they're still trying to pretend like we're not coming for them, but they all know, like deep in the pit of their gut, they all know. So it'll be tough for the East, but you can only play the teams that you're put up against, so it's not our fault.
That's exactly right, and that's just it. It's if there are any of those massive blockbusters that had to happen of really good players, I would want them to go East. I don't want to have to face them until Stanley Cup Finals. Now, if there were big players that came to the Avalanche, that's of course a welcome sight. Exactly. Yep. And
that's so. Avs all the way asking about people making any more big deadline trades. Oh, sorry, I'm breaking up there.
Oh no, you're fine. Go ahead.
Do you think that there's going to be any other big trade deadline moves from us, or do you think it's so confusing with the Eagles situation? We have not much to trade. The problem.
I have the sneaky suspicion that we will pull off 2 trades. They're not going to be massive, but they're going to be kind of
a blockbuster.
Yeah, it's not going to be blockbuster or anything, but I think it's going to be something similar to that Josh Manson-esque type from last season, or Lehkonen from last season.
When you look back, Lehkonen essentially was blockbuster for us in hindsight.
For us, exactly, right? So I think it'll be a known name that you can tell will do a really good job. But I don't think it's going to be anyone like, trying to think of names here.
Well, who's left?
I don't know. I heard names for like Jonathan Taves, for example, like Avs All the Way says. I don't think we're going to be in on someone that big, and I think Taves has even said that he's kind of content in Chicago.
Dater said that we were kicking the tires on what's his face, the defenseman.
John Klingenberg.
Yes. Yep.
That's exactly the type of person I think they'll reel in, as someone like John Klingenberg or something to that extent. Now, who exactly?
Schmaltz.
Who knows?
Also, Shane Gostisbehere is a name that I haven't heard a bunch yet, but it's one that's out there. Nick Schmaltz is one of the not highly talked about names amongst, but it's getting louder now that everyone else is gone. I pity those who have to try to do a full day of coverage over trade deadline when everything is going to be done. It seems like the precedent changed so much this year for how trades were handled prior to the deadline. This whole being held for trade related reasons, I think it's absurd. I think a lot of it is like,
at least they tell us.
Yeah. Well, and Jeff Merrick keeps talking about one coach held a player prior to this being a thing for overall body soreness.
Overall body soreness.
Yeah. But I don't know. It's really, they're tight-lipped as it is. But the thing is, we just, other than that 2C, which people are now wondering, like, do we need a 2C with the way Confer is playing? We don't have any glaring needs, and there's not a glaring like a free agent that meets those needs.
Yeah.
So nothing stands out as being an obvious answer to a problem or an obvious problem. So it's this year is really tough. We could seriously squeak past the deadline and do nothing but like pick up a number 8 defenseman. Like I wouldn't be surprised.
Something like that. Yeah. I like I said, I feel like there are still 2, but I will be not surprised if there are none. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But someone like Klingenberg, and kind of like what we were talking about last week, where we said we think it's going to be like one of the bottom pairing defensemen and a 4th line forward, something like that. But considering how like someone like Dennis Malgin has been playing, that might not even need to be the case.
Nieto has filled a very big gap in just that strong positional depth. And people have to remember this LTIR loophole thing. The issue isn't just having cap space. You don't just take on a player because you can afford them. We have to throw more things in. We're going to have to give up more than just having the cap space available. And we just do not have all of our late round picks for the next couple of years. I believe almost all of them have been traded. And so that's why I was really starting to get worried about maybe we're trading Frankie, but at this point, with him being injured and I don't think that they're playing anything sneaky with that, but we would have to probably give up someone that we love in the prospects. And I don't think that they're willing to give up that 1st round pick that we do have. So,
yeah, I think that's more the coveted one because we haven't had a 1st round pick and since the Reagan administration, it seems like it's been forever. So I don't think this season they give up a 1st round for, something like, as all the way says Jonathan Taves. And the question that he puts on is, do we sign him during maybe the off season? And that's a pretty far look ahead. But I think just it depends. I personally don't think so. It'd be cool. Absolutely. But too difficult to say. Because it might not be the fact that a center was the issue for the season, and he could want to go somewhere else. And would it fit? Who knows? That's a bit too far ahead to tell. But I think as of right now for this trade deadline, you can count him out. And I think we go for someone, if anyone, that's, like I said, it's a known name, but they won't, they're not going to bring the radar off the charts and stuff like that.
Yeah, people that their own markets appreciate them. People like Lehkonen that most people wouldn't have known his name, but Montreal, they loved him. So it's people like that are appreciated for their very niche positions that they fill. But yeah, it'll be very interesting. And also Sakic is like the god of burning people on trades. So we might just come away with I was like, let's just get Sidney Crosby. Like, just bring Sidney, figure it out. Get Sidney Crosby.
Just get it done.
Yeah. I think that would be
now in the surprise of the century, Patrick Kane all of a sudden turns tail and heads to Denver. There you go. When it's basically all set in stone that he's in New York City by the end of the week. But yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting. If there are already massive trades, Britt and I already talked about it. We think we might kind of do something of a little episode here or something just to kind of put out there with our initial reactions and stuff like that. So we'll just have to see if the Avalanche are buyers, sellers, or they are sitting on a riverbank fishing, doing absolutely nothing, and we'll just have to see. So
it's nice that they've been playing so well going into this. That it's not nearly as stressful at this point. We can trust the team more because before it was like we need to acquire like half of a top 6, and now at least we're at a point where it's not terrifying. The thought of not acquiring several very key players is not terrifying. So, but yeah, so moving into, like I said, we have played very, very well the last few games.
Very good. Well. Yes. So with that, then we had those 2 back-to-backs that you just mentioned, the one at Winnipeg, and then you come back next day to host the Flames. You win both of them in dominant fashion, just and easily the best set of back-to-backs out of all those. So we'll jump into that Winnipeg game. Nathan MacKinnon scores after you blinked your eye once.
I know. We're like, we just need that strong start. And Max
It's
like,
just
let's
like
go.
first shift, boom, goal. And that was the thing. I was like,
Mhm.
because we talked about cracking Hellebuck last week, and you have to do it fast. Well, they clearly listened to our
With this
podcast, and they said, well, we
sledgehammer
need to
to it.
make Nick and Brit happy. So of course Nathan McKinnon scored. And it just was all downhill
It
from
was hard to
there.
watch. As a goalie, it's like
Yeah.
you look at the scoreboard and there's 6 cumulative shots and like cumulative goals.
Yeah,
It's like,
it
it felt
was
bad.
yikes.
That's what I texted.
Yep.
I'm like, okay, so 25% save average. Like that's good, right? That's what we're going
That's
for.
okay, right? I mean,
Yeah, it's crazy to go from this is like one of the best goalies in the world. I mean, he truly is one of the best goalies in the NHL, and Nate McKinnon stole his happiness and just I can't believe they didn't pull him after
they
they pulled him
chased
after
him
what, the
out
4th?
of the building. Are you kidding me? Like,
Yeah, it's gnarly. And
that was
they were
crazy.
good goals. It wasn't like we just got
Yes.
so lucky. I
Uh-huh.
mean, we didn't have to take a ton of shots. What's weird is we almost through this whole stretch, we've won these games without having to put up 50 shots. I don't know if we're
Yeah.
just getting some banked up puck luck or if our shooting is coming together better.
I think it's a refined look. I think
I
you're
hope
exactly
so.
right with that. Yep.
Yeah, we have
And that's
significantly less shots.
Oh, exactly. And that's the thing is like if you can get these fantastic opportunities and actually capitalize on them, you don't
Mhm.
need that many, It's
Right.
5 of 22.
Mhm.
That's over
That's
20% of the it's nuts. And one thing I will say though is even so Nathan McKinnon did score just 19 seconds in.
yeah.
The Jets did get a goal not too long after. I
Okay.
will say that. And so how the Avalanche responded by just boom goal, boom goal, boom goal, and it's 4-1 by the end of the first. That's the type of killing momentum that we wanted
Yes, we've
to
finally
have.
gotten to the point where we don't crumble when
Mhm.
we're not doing this just sulking after giving up a lead or a goal or a tie. We've just had so many instances throughout the season where you can literally see it in their body language,
Mhm.
just a change, and you can tell that. Especially McKinnon is a man possessed. You can watch him get
is.
out on the ice, and he's skating faster and shooting harder. I mean, he's just not going to let us lose some nights, and you can tell that he just will not have it. So, but beyond
Mhm.
him, the body language in these, we don't care if they score because we're going to go score 4 more apparently, and it's really nice to start feeling that trust again and seeing the abs of last year. And honestly, even more tenacious at sometimes because we're having to. I mean, we don't have Cale Makar, and how much of our offense was that last year?
Oh gosh. I mean, if you think about it, Norris Trophy winner, Conn Smythe winner. I mean, the man kind of was your fulcrum, not
Mhm.
only defensively but offensively.
Yeah.
And just kind of like what you said, the fact that we're able to do all of this stuff and without him, I should say,
Mhm.
is amazing, right?
Yep.
Because a lot of times, if Cale Makar was out, that the defense, and I will say the defense has been a bit faltery this season, but to
Yeah,
do
I
this
mean,
without
even
Cale Makar,
Taze is
it's
not
really
having a
great.
good year so far. I mean,
Yeah.
in relative terms. I mean, obviously Taze's worst season is better than
Oh,
most best
absolutely.
season. But it's nice though that with a little bit of a regression or whatever you want to call it, Bo Byram says, I'm amazing and I'm here, and he's got all the confidence you've ever
Pretty
seen
much.
in him.
Yeah.
So Bo Byram, oh God, it feels so good to see him come out here and just absolutely destroy it because there's been so many concerns. It's basically been a relentless fear that he's going to not be the same or just,
Mm-hmm.
it's incredible that he still plays fearless. He's, what did he get? He had 2 goals in
He
the,
netted a couple. So the one against Winnipeg, he had one. The one against Calgary, I don't recall. Let's see. Did he have any assists?
was
No
that the
assists or
Edmonton
goals.
that he had 2 in?
It might have been the Edmonton game where he had a couple, or St. Louis. It might have been.
Yeah. When you consider the
But in
amount of
either sense,
he's had off in the last 2
yeah,
years, I mean, he just has no problem getting back. And maybe that was a good thing. He kept doing it out longer so that he could come back 100% with no issues.
exactly. Yep. And that's just it. It's who's stepping up.
Mhm.
kind of like what you just talked about was, for example, like Dennis Malgin stepping up big time when there's no Landeskog or when there's no, insert injured player here.
Yeah.
Bo Byram, when Cale Makar's not in and stuff like that. It's all about, who's filling in those shoes. And I think that's actually kind of the biggest thing this season that I could really take a step back and say, as far as filling in shoes go, this team has done a pretty good job, all things considered.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
only a few points
Well,
out of first place.
Casey Comfer has already beat his career high, I believe, this year for
Uh-huh.
points. He's not there for goals yet, but he's like, hey, career year, he's here. So he's shown up
Yep.
apparently.
Yep.
Hopefully he's most likely outpricing himself for next year, but we'll see. It does suck that it seems that Erod's had a little bit of regression. It seems like he's been struggling a little bit lately. I'm not sure, what that can be attributed to, unless it's just from other people thriving.
And I think his regression, it's honestly just as far as scoring goes. He's still, he's still getting assists and stuff. His play is still just as fine. But I do agree. It's like we haven't seen him score in a little bit. So hopefully he does that tonight.
Hopefully he's just really, really busy practicing a new shootout shot, because
that's exactly right.
We need a new shootout shot. We loved it.
That Tampa shootout, he pulled the same move.
I know.
Oh, if Vasilevsky didn't have that little poke to tussle that away, that would have been 3 for 3 or 3 for 4.
And it's so funny because then Max scores on his, he's like, after he had just interviewed, and he's like, I usually like to shoot high above the glove. And then he goes out there and boom, right above the glove. And it's like, are you guys watching video?
I just told you.
Yeah.
Beyond sad. But in either sense, this team right now are a very well-oiled machine, and that's just the type of,
it's finally coming together.
Exactly. It's the type of look that you want to have, especially here down the stretch, right after trade deadlines and all the fun, hullabaloo and stuff like that. But no, definitely great back-to-back wins. It definitely got your confidence up, especially Winnipeg being, the position ahead of you.
And they're just on a downward spiral. We may have very well just ruined Winnipeg's season entirely. They
that's right.
To a sense of defeat, it seems. And they're essentially being questioned altogether as to whether they're fake at this point, because we made them look like they have no business being in the top of the Western Division.
Exactly. And I wonder if, because that's the thing. It's like right now, it seems like almost every team in the West is being streaky, Avalanche included, right? Because right now we've won 6 out of our last 7. Fantastic, right? But you go just not too far above that. We lost 5 out of, or no, excuse me, we lost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 out of our last 8. It was just a big swing and stuff like that. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, nasty stuff. So I think that's just kind of Winnipeg.
Well, they're done. I truly think that we could and should win the Western Division. And I think Dallas is more real than Winnipeg, but I also I don't think Dallas is the real deal, especially should something happen to Ottinger. They are done.
And we'll discuss our matchup with Dallas here in just a second. But just one last item on these games that were played. My favorite thing was just being able to score and keep the momentum. Because there were times, like even with the Calgary game, they scored 1 and you kind of felt stuff starting to retract a bit and pull more toward Calgary. And Dennis Malgin, bless him, he pulled the McDavid move.
That was
which no one's talking about, by the way. That is what makes me beyond irate. And
I bet Toronto is talking about it.
Probably, right? Us in Toronto are the only ones talking about it, but nobody else does. It was almost the exact same move. He took on 4 guys and netted it. It was amazing. But anyways, that it brought the momentum right back to the Avalanche, and the rest was history. And so I like that they're able to do that.
So nice. And then the other important thing is, I think that the tribute video to Kadri was the sweetest thing I've ever seen. And I've never seen such a passionate tribute video, which is so funny when you have tribute videos for guys that play for a team their whole career and leave. And Kadri played for us for a couple years. And he's our guy. It's like he never even played for Toronto. He's our guy. Colorado
Yep.
loves
And
Kadri.
Denver, I mean, you could definitely feel it was kind of a dark
Yeah,
day when Kadri left and
I
whatnot.
know.
And it wasn't no hard feelings or anything. It was just something that he wanted, a decision that for him and his family to make as much as he could. And
Yeah.
like any other NHL player, but it hurt. Whenever I see him, I'm like, you were so much better with us.
I know. They should
That's
just
kind of
come
my
back.
piece that I could offer to him. Like, you could always come back.
Yep, they're on the verge of calling it in for the season too. So we'll just give them
Exactly.
back to us for the
Exactly. So we got some games on the docket this week. Finally, we actually have a very full week of games. So first things first, tonight, after this episode is done here in a few minutes, 7:00 Mountain Time, the Avalanche take on the Golden Knights, Vegas Golden Knights. So a couple things in this particular game. In fact, well, before I say that, let me just list off who we have for this week. It's a pretty big week.
It's
Vegas,
very
New
serious.
Jersey, Dallas, and Seattle.
Yep.
That is not a small task by any stretch of the imagination. But for this Vegas game right now, Vegas, they're kind of an enigma. I want to call them right now, just because in their last little slew of games, they had this massive winning streak.
Right.
But right before that was a massive losing streak, and now they're
At
like
this point,
struggling
they
to
could
get
go
a win. And
straight to the bottom.
like they lost to Chicago, barely beat Calgary.
They just acquired Barbashev. Stone is
and
out.
they got Barbashev.
And
exactly.
them losing Stone is quite relatable to us losing Landeskog. I mean, he is a very important part of their team off and on the ice. So it'll be very interesting to see. They can crash and burn, or they might soar straight to the top, because Vegas just has no control over their emotions, and they're
That's exactly right.
chaos. They are just the evil chaos of this world. So
yep.
Yeah, I'm really anxious for this game too.
Me too. So very quickly then, for these 3 keys of the game that I have. The first one is I'm still mad about 2021.
Always.
And for obvious reasons. So as much as I love the team, the Vegas team, their front office is trash. We don't talk about that, but the team itself, they're great guys. They have a fun squad. I'm mad about it. I don't care who's on that squad. It's like I'm mad.
Yeah.
So just pound the living crap out of them. It's one of those things where, like here in if I could put it into a college football term, I know that's going to make you extremely happy to hear, but here in Utah, we have the big holy war, which is BYU versus Utah, right? And there's always those moments during, being a Utah or a BYU fan is whenever the other team is playing and they lose, even though it has nothing to do with you, you still kind of feel like happy that they did lose. This is kind of that same instance, even though you are playing them and you're like, it's nothing on the guys, but it's like it's one of those like feel good, like burn in your soul type. Yeah, that was good.
I used to like their whole ragtag misfits thing, but I just like a lot of their team. I don't have those feel goods anymore. I just like their swag is really all that does it for me. So
sorry, I cut you off. What did you say?
No, I think they're a bunch of douchebags. I hate that. There you go. I would fight him myself if I could. So the Vegas goal is holding off. Like, the goalie situation is very big situation for the Knights. As we all know, Robin Leonard is in injury land / snake stealer prison. I don't know exactly what they do with guys who steal $1 million worth of snakes and don't pay for them. I'm looking to see who's playing for them. I know that they had Brissois, and he popped off, was playing amazing, hurt. They've hurt 2 of their guys. I believe Aiden Hill should be starting tonight. And I don't know how he has been playing, but they're rolling through just kind of amateur goalies that are playing, that you kind of get that good luck bump like some guys do. They get that little bit of magic when they first get to the NHL. They generally taper off, which it seemed that's what is it Laurent? Is it Loren? He did that. He had a great start to the year. They have been streak after streak after streak. There's no consistency to this season for them. Their coach even came out and basically called Eichel out and said he's not playing the way that we need and expect him to, which is always interesting to me. But yeah, it's they're as much of a train wreck as we are, honestly. And I don't know that Barbashev is going to fix that in any way. And I am curious. It doesn't even show who their backup goalie is on the NHL thing. So they might just be riding with some dude.
The Zamboni driver. David Ayers coming back.
Yeah. So it would be nice to get out there. We need to come out insanely confident because that's what Vegas is. They're cocky confidence. They're, that's what they ride on. They're the best. It doesn't matter if they're the worst. They're still the best.
City, man.
Well, yeah. So I just think that the confidence is going to be key. And it's nice that we have more of our tenured players back to bring that confidence instead of bringing half of an AHL team out to expect them to be confident, especially when our last game was in Vegas, I believe. And I can imagine playing in Vegas is quite intimidating for AHL players. They do like a whole concert and dinner show before every game.
It's a spectacle.
I'd like to go, but
I'm mere hours away. I mean,
have you gone?
Whenever. I've been to the arena. Haven't been to a Golden Knights game, but my wife and I are trying to get my parents to go.
Nice. They do like a whole parade with their Knights down the road, don't they? Before they get to the rink, like
something
they do
like that. Yeah, it's a thing, man. I tell you what.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
And you actually you completely knocked that out of the park for my key number 2. It was goalie roulette was the name of it, and you basically summed it right up. It's who you're getting and how they play. Do they have one of those Connor Ingram moments?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
But we'll have to see. Aiden Hill. He seems like an easy cookie to crack.
Yeah, I thought that they would be going after what's the Arizona goalie, the
Vejmelka?
Vejmelka. I always want to say Vandrak. I don't know why. Vejmelka. I thought that they might be going after that, but you always got to wonder like who won't trade to who, and they're so close that there might be some disdain in there, just naturally.
Exactly.
But I can't believe Vejmelka hasn't been dealt yet because he's winning games for them, and he's not supposed to. Like, stop playing so well.
And now Connor Ingram's starting to hit his stride. Like the goalie tandem down there in Arizona. I know we talk about. I swear them every week. It's great. Third key to the game for the Vegas Golden Knights tonight is it's all about a certain point of view. I got a little too ahead of myself. A certain point of view. Vegas has this odd tradition. It seems like a tradition, but it seems to be a knack more than anything, that they can just shoot from the oddest angle and have some lucky deflection and it goes in, or vice versa, where they could just top shelf it, where our guy will be right up against the post, have his head even tilted into the post, and it still like goes like between here. It's like they have just that odd knack of getting those lucky little bounces their way and the weird angles that you normally wouldn't have to worry about. They tend to let those go in. So just something to keep your eye on if you're the Avalanche. Make sure you have your stick and poke checks put into place where they don't have those opportunities, because if they do, you never know what could happen. And
it helps our defense has been playing weird or well, because those weird goals generally derive from
they play weird, we play weirder.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think George will be out for this game. He likes a good he seems to thrive under the pressure and the negative feelings.
He does.
Polar opposite.
He does. Yep.
So yeah, I think he's going to show up tonight.
Yep, I think so too. Okay, next game. A couple days after, we have the New Jersey Devils. A little bit of a revenge game from the 1-0 loss. This is going to be, again, an interesting one, considering now they have Timo Meier. And just it's going to be a whole different game altogether, considering who now we have versus they're trying to now have chemistry with their additions. It's going to be it's either going to be a barn burner offensively, or it's going to be kind of the exact same game that we had when we were there in the Prudential Center.
Yeah,
either like a 1-0 game or a 6-7 game, you know.
Which I believe when we saw them was at the deepest depths of our despair earlier in the season when we didn't.
It was right around that area.
We didn't have Nuke. I think that was when we went through that right prior to that Chicago loss. But, so
it was pretty close too.
We should have a little more firepower this time. We're not.
I believe that we will. Yep. So key to the game number 1 is I calling it duking it out. And what this is kind of just what I said, right? Match stride for stride, blow for blow. You know, you can't let your guard down on this game, even if you're up 4-1, 3-0, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Jersey has that ability to come back even really late in the game.
Well, and they're at a point in their season where they're on a mission to prove that the beginning of this season was not a fluke, because essentially it was them in Boston that just couldn't lose a game. And then New Jersey tapered off and Boston peaked entirely too early, and hopefully will start falling. But yeah, I mean, they so everybody's just calling it a fluke, and they need to prove that it's not, which they just don't scare me that much for playoffs. But I also I don't know. We'll see. I am curious about their goalie situation. I know that they did call up Akira Schmid. He's the goalie who actually played for my Musketeers that I MC for.
Nice.
And he got his first shutout the other night. But also, I generally don't feel like you're going to win the Stanley Cup if you're relying on a second-year AHL call-up. So we'll see.
Maybe.
I don't know what happened with Vanacek, or if he is Blackwell alive still? Blackwell. I always mix them up.
Who knows?
Blackwood hurts a lot. They have a very delicate goalie situation, it seems.
Yep, absolutely. I don't know what to tell you with Blackwood. He's something of maybe alive, half dead, zombified.
He's played 17 games. Akira's played 10, and Vanacek's played 38. So if Vanacek is healthy, I assume he'll be out there.
Yeah.
If not, I'm sure we'll see Akira. But neither one of those goalies scare me. Like,
no,
the Devils don't scare me at all. I really think that this is a game we need to win, especially when you consider the other games on our slate this week. This is a game that I feel like we need to win it.
Exactly. Yep. Point number 2 to this game. I call it the boot scooting boogie. So it's a dance, clearly, and you dance with your feet. There was one particular game I watched. What's that?
Can you demonstrate for us, please?
I wish I could. I did ballroom dance in high school. I will let you know that. I was quite the dancer back in my day. But maybe I'll send you all a video. I'll post it on the page one of these days. But anyway, so with dancing and you're shuffling your feet around and stuff like that, you need to make sure you have your skates underneath you. This is one where mistakes can cost you, especially when it's dumb little trips over the ice, you know, a wayward pass, whatever it is. You need to make sure you are dancing the boot scoot and boogie and getting those shoes and skates, in this case, underneath you and making it look like art, man. It's going to be great. So, again, basically play mistake-free and skate really, really well.
Yeah, I don't know, that goal that Newhook scored the other night, like the
mirror image
leading up to that
of Darren Helm.
Has not been skating with Nathan McKinnon. Like that was a Nathan McKinnon-esque, like that was such a powerful, explosive takeoff. It was, Newhook is just, he's getting there. He's getting there. He looked so good. It was such a good goal, and his skating it's changing. It's changed a lot. Sorry. That was one thing that stood out so much to me in that game was he looks like he's skating like Nathan McKinnon, which I wish I could skate like Nathan McKinnon.
we all wish we could, man. Yeah. I tell you what. So let's see, point number 3, and then we have to quickly get through the Dallas and Kraken games.
Sorry.
Here, but no, we're good. Point number 3 is the heavy toll, is what I said. This game doesn't come easy, right? It has to. The toll is playing personally your best, and if you play personally at your best as a team, you play better. And we've seen this happen on numerous occasions where there is one guy that takes over. Most of the time it's Nathan MacKinnon, but one guy takes over. We need everyone to basically take over in their own rights.
Yep. Yeah, it's Rantanen, MacKinnon, Nuke. It's just been a rotation, occasionally JT Comfort. But yeah, it would be nice to see us playing well enough that we can ice all the lines without having to overwork. And ideally at this time, we would have Cale Makar back, hopefully. He was in a non-contact sweater today, so hopefully we can see him back then and see all lines on the ice for a good amount of time.
Yep, exactly. Okay, on to the Dallas Stars. This one is the big one, in my opinion, for the week because they are the guys right in front of the Avalanche.
Yep.
So, 3 keys to the game. I can narrow it down to 1. Win 4 points. Yeah. And this is all it's going to be. It's going to be a bloodbath. It's going to be just absolute chaos. It's going to be havoc. But these are points that you are really, really going to need. So at all costs.
Yeah, we need to win in regulation.
Walk away in regulation.
Yep.
Yep.
It's going to be a dang good game, I'd imagine. I just hope that we have everyone there and healthy because this is going. No one has been talking about the Avs this year. It's hard to even believe that we just won the Stanley Cup because we are barely a discussion within sports media beyond talking about how it's such a shame that we're so injured. But I just don't think people have understood really the extent of the injuries. But this is a game that the nation is going to tune into because this is a measuring stick game. It's to see how far the backers
as well.
Yeah, this is going to be a very gritty game too. So I'd like to see.
And a matinee.
Did Curtis McDermott break his nose? Is that what's going?
In his fight with Lucic, he got socked, man, right in his nose. It is broken.
Yeah.
So not the funnest fight to watch, considering the last time they did. I actually watched it live. I was in Denver when that happened.
Nice.
But Lucic definitely got his revenge exacted on that one.
Yeah.
But
I just
hopefully,
don't like
hockey players, it's a nose break. You should be back next game. No problem.
Blows my mind. But yeah, with Dallas, it's just everybody's going to need to come out gritty, and we need to keep our heads up. I don't want to leave with anyone injured out of that game.
Exactly. Yep, heads on a swivel, but you know that it's going to be a playoff atmosphere type game. Without question.
It better not be.
It really better be
in a regular season game type.
I mean, I'm okay with a 7-0, just absolute stomping. I'd like that. But anyway, matinee as well.
Yep. Oh, matinee.
1:30 puck drop.
Okay.
Going to be fun, but we've been able to overcome that before, so I don't think
that was an issue. A really pleasant surprise because historically matinees have not been our gig, and we did very well. So yeah,
no, not really.
And unfortunately, our next game is a lot lighter hearted. I feel like the Kraken are just not nearly as intimidating as anyone else, but it's still a very still a West Coast game. So we need to beat them. They're trying to prove they're in this weird limbo. They're not sure if they're still as good as they were. They're not shooting, their shooting percentages were sky high earlier in the season, which was not sustainable, but they're just really coming back down to earth. Maybe it's Grubauer. Is Grubauer even the starting goalie at this point? I don't believe
he was the last 2 games. Okay. Yeah, they've lost 3 in a row. They got blanked by San Jose, lost to Boston 6-5. That one was kind of a heartbreaker for them, and then just got killed by Toronto. So the 3 keys to the game I have for this, we'll do this pretty quick here. First one is how deep is the Kraken? And this is a question of buoyancy, right? Have they floated to the top? Are they sinking again? Where's their depth in the sea? Because right now it's just like Vegas. We said with them being they're hot, they're cold, they're great, they're not.
I don't think they've made any trade moves yet so far. So it's like maybe they don't even know where they stand at this point. I'm not sure because they have a lot of prospects, but they're not. I don't know.
Yep.
Maybe they don't.
But the one thing we do need to know for sure, or we need to make sure, I should say, is that they are not to the point where they can all of a sudden find out, oh yeah, we're good again, and that's against us.
Right. That's my they'll bring a team's resurgence. Like don't
exactly. I hate it when that happens. Where it seems to be the Blues all the time, where Binnington just remembers he's the best goalie at times. So yeah, that I don't want this to be one of those resurgence games where they're like, oh yeah, we all of a sudden want to win the game. So that's key to the game number 1. Key to the game number 2 is, do we miss Burakovsky? I mean, the answer personally is yes, right? Now that is an obvious one. But I'm talking about the production, what he brought to the table, what he's bringing to the table with the Kraken. I don't even know if is he healthy back again? Is he?
I believe he is back. I don't think he's on the same tear that he was at the beginning.
Let's see. He was. Maybe he's not back. I don't see him on that lineup, but in either sense, though, you know, he went to Seattle and all that stuff. His production was
February 5th, 7th.
Okay, so he's been out for a little bit, but maybe he's back. I don't know. Haven't paid too much attention, but what Burakovsky was to the Avalanche last season was one of those. You know, even though he was streaky, he came through when it really, really was desperate, right? And it's all to the imagination of who fulfills that role. Is it Alex Rodriguez? Is it Dennis Malgin, JT Compher? Who is going to be that person in this game that just all of a sudden remembers they have a hot hand and they know how to score, right? We, you know, kind of like what we touched on with these prior games, but same thing. Depth scoring is going to be a very important key because it's who flips that switch. It's who wants it more. Because this again is one of those games where you have lost to them at home. It could happen again. So you have to make sure that everyone, as far as depth is concerned, is playing an A+ type of hockey game.
Yep.
So last key to the Kraken game, and then we'll sign off and go watch yourselves some Avalanche games. Key to the game number 3 is in fact the same thing, but with Philip Grubauer. So we know we have gotten we're just fine with our goalie standpoint, but it's as far as him finding himself, or even Martin Jones, whoever we face.
Yeah.
And we talk, and it seems to be this is the big kind of swirling theme whenever we play someone is, oh, you have to crack the goalie, you have to crack the goalie. It still stands, right? Because Philip Grubauer, I don't think he's won. Has he? Or no, maybe he has won once against us, or was that Martin Jones? I can't remember, but I want to say for right now he has not currently won against us. The team has, but I don't think when he
doesn't
was
scare me. I mean, we just need to crack him.
Yep. But, so this is a fact of Grubauer needs to just realize he can't beat the Avalanche, you know, and that was kind of it. So, again, great games against goalies, great games against.
It is. It's going to be a fun week, or really not.
It'll be fun,
depending on how we do.
Yep. So again, all of these, I think the big statement wins will be the Dallas game. I mean, all of them will be, but the Dallas game especially, because that one's for points, and then the one against the Devils, that's to show that you can hang with the top dogs.
Right, and that game might be a toss-up too. I would imagine that might be a game that we play on and in Kincaid, Johansson, whoever, whatever.
Spin the wheel.
But at some point, Georgie's going to have to sit for a game, but maybe not.
I mean, take a break.
Yeah. He likes it, so I don't know. We'll see. But that might make that game kind of a toss-up. But the Knights game and the Dallas Stars game are absolute must-win. Total moral, like, feels. It's a must. We need to win to prove ourselves and to establish ourselves again as the top. So.
Yep, exactly. And I think if we do that, the sky's the limit. You know what I mean? There's nothing that could really stop us. Okay, well, that takes care of this episode then. We're excited to see what trades come, what comes of the games that are going to be played on the docket this week. Very excited. Hopefully the Avs keep their winning streak up. Don't forget, everybody, if you like this show and you wanted to follow more on what's on the network, you can go to YouTube, Facebook, wherever you can find podcasts and get the MHRT network. Follow them, like, subscribe, bell icon, the whole works. And then if you like this particular podcast, you can follow us at Clusterpuck Avs on Twitter and Instagram, and the Clusterpuck Podcast on Facebook. Well, we're going to sign off. Going to watch some Avalanche.
I'm going to try to hop on in a few minutes here on the Neighborhood Watch. So if anybody wants to get on that, just like a live watch, going to get my kid to bed and then get down here. We'll see how if the game's going bad already. Might be too rowdy already.
There you go.
To go live.
I might pop in for a period. I'm going to try to see if I can get set up in my living room, but we'll have to see if I'm able to. So, okay. Well, that takes care of everything. Hopefully you guys have a great week.
Yes, have a good one.
And as always, go Avs go.
You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.
'Cause this party is over.